Okay, welcome to this video. We are going to look at sig figs, and we're going to take this subject, which many find so complex. This is going to be sig figs made hard. Wait, that's wrong. Wait, no. Sig figs made easy. Easy. And you know it's easy because we're not even spelling out the entire word easy. That's how lazy we are, so it better be easy enough for a lazy person like me to do it. Okay, sig figs made easy. Here we go. And by the way, I should say sig figs stands for significant figures, and some people call them significant digits. Significant digits, like the digits of a number. And they shorten it from sig fig. Instead of doing significant digits, they call it sig digs instead of sig figs. So what do you prefer? Do you like the fruit, a fig, which I'm going to assume looks something like an apple? Is that a fig? Or do you prefer to dig? You know, sig fig, sig dig. I'm not really digging the sig digs. Okay, here we go. First, it's important to understand why sig figs are important. So I've heard that students like when you make cheesy references to literature and pop culture, so here you go. Now, why are sig figs important? Well, let's say that you borrow some money from your friend, and how much do you borrow? You borrow $44 and 80 cents. Right? And your friend forgets how much money you owe. $44.80. Your friend forgets how much money you owe and says, "Oh, I think it was $40." So your friend pays you back $40. And you're like, "Well, you owe me another $4.80, right? You know, you cut out this amount here. You just rounded." That's what sig figs are, essentially. They're rounding. So here's another example. Let's say you go to the tailor, right? You're getting a dress made, and the tailor has you stand upright so she can measure how tall you are for the dress, and the tailor measures that you are, well, apparently this dress covers your head as well. The tailor measures that you are about 80 inches, which is pretty tall. Now, yeah, so this is like over 6.5 feet tall. This is very tall. So you get your measurement and you're 80 inches, but you know you're not actually 80 inches. You know that you're 75 inches, right? Now you don't want this 5 inches of extra fabric hanging down, so you get your dress, and there's going to be like 5 inches of extra fabric. Here's your dress, because apparently this is what I think dresses look like, and it's just hanging around your feet. You're going to trip. I mean, after all, you already can't see, so now you have to worry about tripping over this extra fabric. So there's a difference in the sig figs between these values. This one has more sig figs, that has fewer sig figs. So another way to describe it is we could say that this value is more precise. This value asserts that there's a 5 in this place, whereas this value makes no such assertion about the ones unit, the unit's place. So sig figs is a question of precision. That's why sig figs are important. So you're not wandering around aimlessly in this dress that covers your eyes, that covers your feet, you know, tripping over yourself. Okay, so here we go. Number 1. How many sig figs does the value 0.00500,500 contain? Now, if you use the sig fig rules, you have to read through like these 9 or 10 rules, and you have to say, okay, that's a 0 before a decimal, these are leading zeros, trailing zeros, intervening zeros in between, and you have to figure out where each of these falls within the rules and apply the rules to this one number. And that gets a little complicated. Here's an easier, quicker way to do it. First, it involves drawing a horrible rendition of the United States. How's that? That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Okay, look at this. That's a spinning image. Okay. So you draw the U.S. Now you need to know where the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans are. Atlantic is over here. Pacific is over here. The way I remember that is never eat shredded wheat. Atlantic, this is a vowel. That's a vowel. That's a consonant. That's a consonant. Okay. So we have like 15 mnemonic devices going on right now. So you start and you figure out P doesn't stand for Pacific, it stands for present. A doesn't stand for Atlantic, it stands for absent. Is the decimal point present or absent? It's present. Here it is. So you write your value down inside the US. 00500. The decimal point is present, so you start at the Pacific Ocean and you work your way across to the Atlantic Ocean. You do not count any leading zeros. That's the one rule. In fact, you don't start counting sig figs until you get to your first non-zero digit. Here it is, the 5. That's the first digit that's not a 0. And then you count every digit that follows. So how many sig figs are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 sig figs. Okay. Let's try it with another one. How many significant figures does the value 150.0050200 contain? Alright, draw your US. I think it's more like that. That's even better. Oh my gosh. Why am I not an artist? Okay, so you put the number inside the US, 150.0050200. Pacific, Atlantic. Is the decimal point present or absent? It's present. I see it right there. So you start at the Pacific Ocean, you go across. Start counting sig figs when you get to your first non-zero digit. So watch me. Here I go. My first non-zero. Oh, that's not a 0. That's a 1. So I count, and I count every remaining digit till I get to the end. So how many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 sig figs. I started counting immediately because my first digit at all was not a 0. The first digit at all was a 1. So I got to count everything because of that. Okay, let's try a different one without the decimal point. How many sig figs does the value 150,050,000 contain? So you draw the US. It's like every single time I draw this, I just get better. Okay, you put the number inside. 150,050,000. Pacific, Atlantic. And you say, is the decimal point present or absent? Well, this time it's absent. There's no point anywhere. So you start over at the Atlantic Ocean, you go across the country, and you start counting sig figs when you get to your first non-zero digit. So I don't count this, that's a 0. I don't count this, that's a 0. Don't count this, that's a 0, that's a 0. Here we go, the first one that's not a 0. So I count that and every remaining digit until I get to the end. And how many did I count? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 sig figs. Hooray! Gotta give some eyebrows. Okay, let's try one more. Final one. How many significant figures does the value 1200 point contain? Alright, now you might think that that point there is just a typo, but it's not. It's part of the number. Okay, so you write it down, 1200 point. There's nothing after, it's just a point, which is probably a little odd. Maybe you haven't seen this before, but in fact, this is a valid way to write numbers. Okay, you've got Pacific, Atlantic, and we're going across because the decimal point is present. It's there, even though nothing follows, it still is there. And so it is present. So you go across until you get to the first non-zero digit. Here it is, that's the first non-zero digit. So you count 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 sig figs. Now, if instead this had been the number 1200 with no point, right? Here's my US. It's also how I draw teeth, by the way. The tooth looks the same to me as the US. Okay, now if I write it this way without the point, the decimal point is absent, so I have to start over on the Atlantic side. And in that case, the first non-zero digit, well, that's a 0. Here's a 0. The 2 is the first non-zero digit, and I count all the way to the end, including 1. So that would be 2 sig figs. So you can add a decimal point right here at the end if you want to indicate that the trailing zeros are significant. So there it is, we've made sig figs easy.